Hello, friends, and welcome back to the channel. So, it's been a little bit of time. I was going to do a video following up the Acme versus Coyote thing, but unfortunately, there hasn't been much resolution regarding that. Yes, Warner said that they would shop stuff around, but that hasn't been shopped. Like, there hasn't been a deal made yet. So, I was going to wait for that, but I guess this is my follow up for that. Yeah, watch that video if you want to see me being very mad at David Zaslav. But yeah, otherwise, I wanted to be able to talk about some of the movies that came out this year because this has been a fantastic year for film. And anyone that's saying otherwise hasn't watched enough movies. I'll just say that right now. I believe I was at 107 new films this year, so I do feel pretty well qualified to talk about what I think are the best. There are a couple that I wasn't able to see just because of, I don't know, circumstances, just made either me being too lazy or just not having the desire to go see them. But so I think of films, major films that I haven't seen are Past Lives, The Holdovers, Maestro, and like Priscilla. Believe everything else for the most part. I mean, no, I guess not Monster or American Fiction either. Those are some other big ones. Or Ferrari. So it's mostly like recent stuff that then I just wasn't able to see. But yeah, I've seen a lot of other stuff. And yeah, so let's get into this. Since I saw so many films this year, I felt that I needed to do top 25 because every single time I started as the top 10 because I usually do top 10s and I couldn't this year. It even hurt me. There were many times where something got pushed off my top 25. I'm like, oh, I want to represent that, but just didn't happen. So, with that in mind, I literally just added one last night. I'm still going to try and finish out the year watching some more of these, but I've also discovered that people don't really care about end of the year lists after like January. They start to like go out of vogue. So I was like, I got to make sure I get it in before then. So yeah, we'll just go through them all, and some I'll have more to say than others because some I might feel like I need to defend or might have to just put a spotlight on because it might just be lesser known. But number 25 is It Lives Inside. I was able to see this as, I believe, as part of Fantasia, and it's phenomenal. It's manages to do possession in a very unique way. I love possession films, and this does it very well. Number 24, Sanctuary. This is Margaret Qualley and Christopher Abbott. It's the way it plays with power dynamics and character, and it's likely not going to be what you think it is when you first watch it. And I think that's why it's so appealing and so well done, because they're just so good. Christopher Abbott is phenomenal, and Margaret Qualley, she just continues to be an actress that you just can't quite pin down. Just highly recommend. 23, Totally Killer. So this is Kiernan Shipka. This is like a go back in time travel slasher. And it's more comedy than horror for the most part. I mean, I say that, but I'm very desensitized to things, so I'm sure that there's stuff that would, upset people if they're not into horror films, but I thought this was very lighthearted, very fun. I like how it handled the time travel, and I got very much like Back to the Future vibes from it. Yeah, it just worked really well. I think it's a concept that could have easily gone south, and I think they nailed it. 22, Thanksgiving. I can't believe this movie is as good as it is. It's based on the Grindhouse trailer, and that Grindhouse trailer, very grindhousey, based on like 80s slashers, and this one is more based on the mid-2000s slashers. And brilliant choice. Absolute brilliant choice. Literally my only negative against the film is that they change who the killer is during he had different people playing the pilgrim, the John Carver under the mask. So then there's a discrepancy in terms of size of the killer, which I don't like. I'm assuming that the next film will introduce somewhat like a second killer that then kind of makes sense of some of that stuff. But I was shocked at how good this one is. They do damn near everything right. Number 21, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, I think that this is an example of how you do a Part 1. However, I will say, because I've already heard that they're not doing, it's not like the next film isn't going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2. Sounds like they're just going to do a different title. So this should have not been a part 1. But that aside, despite that, it is still a complete film. My biggest drag against Across the Spider-Verse, which will not be on this list, is that it's an incomplete film. The narrative is struck down the middle. We have all of this stuff set up that then there's no satisfying conclusion to. I mean, even I have a hard time even rating that film because it is so much of just okay, nothing's resolved. Okay, wait 3 years to finally find out more about what this is about, which I have issues with. I've given the movie more than a fair shot. I believe I've watched it 3 or 4 times this year because I want to like it, but all I see is problems. All I see is massive, massive problems, and I think I'm also kind of offended that the soundtrack sucks so much. But yeah, then number 20, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. I'm a big Turtles guy, and this is able to blend a lot of the Turtles lore in such a satisfying way. And the fact that they finally have teenagers playing the Turtles that needed to happen a long time ago. Not that I didn't mind the 30-somethings playing the Turtles and the Michael Bay produced films because they still had some charm to them, but this shows how much better it is. And I also should say, because after the first time I watched it, I wasn't as big of a fan of the girl who plays April O'Neil. However, after watching The Bear, love it. Love this weird interpretation. I kind of wish that her name wasn't April because she doesn't really share a lot of the same qualities as April. Could have very easily been a new character, but it's whatever. That's happens a lot these days. Number 19, Suitable Flesh. This is like a body swap sex thriller. It's really good. It feels like a spiritual successor to Reanimator, and it has a very weird tone. I just love where it goes. Barbara Crampton is great in it. So is Judah Lewis. I think Judah Lewis is probably the best actor in the film. With his demonic form is just awesome. They do a really good job with that. And I don't know, Joe Lynch, I think he's very quickly becoming a director that I quite enjoy because there's some stuff that I wasn't a fan of, but it seems like he's matured to the point that I can say I enjoy his stuff. Number 18, May December. I had no idea about this movie. No idea. It came out and I kept seeing people say, wow, that was awesome. And Natalie Portman deserves an Oscar. That's really all you need to tell me to get me to watch your film. And yeah, it's phenomenal. I had no idea what it was even about. And yet, what it is about is insanity. The based on the teacher that slept with the student and then they had a whole family. It's interesting. It's very much like it's hard hitting, it's uncomfortable, but Natalie Portman is just phenomenal. She's just so good at it. I don't know whether she deserves an Oscar, but she definitely deserves an Oscar nom, but it's just phenomenal. Number 17, The Creator. I just watched this last night. It could easily go up on my list because I loved this film. I think the fact that I had recently watched Rebel Moon, so then I got to compare the two a lot and just got to see this is how you do world building. This is how you do science fiction. This is how you do effects these days. Everything about it. Phenomenal. One of the best sci-fi stories of the last decade, and just number 16, Godzilla Minus One. Now, I love the original Godzilla, so it might be number 1 for me, but Godzilla Minus One could easily be number 2. I might even pass the original. That's how good this film is. Even my nephews saw this film in theaters. My nephews, who are 11 and 6. That is insane. Like, how the heck? How in the world can they sit through a over 2 hour subtitled film? Because it's that good. It's that intriguing. The monster effects are just phenomenal. And the sense of scale, mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. Number 15, Saw X. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the channel. I'm sure I have. But I was lucky enough to see Saw X a couple weeks early. The Lionsgate was nice enough to fly me out to Vegas for a cool little press event. So I got to see this early. So I actually saw it with my super critical cap on. And so Saw X is the only review of the year that I regret. Because I gave it a 7 because I was very harsh on it. I still really enjoyed the movie, but I was like, still just feels like a 7. And then rewatching, I'm like, no, this is an 8. So if you ever see my Saw X review, just know it's actually technically an 8. It has changed. They did such a good job with bringing back John Kramer and Amanda and having a satisfying story and somehow making the series rejuvenated, because I can't wait to see Saw 11, and them in this time period is where that's just where they need to be for the next couple entries, because I assume these are going to be yearly for a little bit until they then start seeing diminishing returns. But just so good. Number 14, Blackberry. It's a film that I think that people need to really, I think they should check out the actual film and not the miniseries. I think that it's something to experience in one go, because it's just so good. And Glenn Howerton, it's too bad that like when this film was released, probably lowers his chances of being nominated for awards, because the man is deserving of some awards for this one, because he does such a good job. Number 13, Asteroid City. This might be the film that I remember the least on the entire list. I remember enjoying it. I remember liking the Wes Anderson quirkiness and all of the people that show up. And yeah, other than that, I don't. I probably need to rewatch it. That is what I probably need to do. Number 12, Wonka. Probably the surprise of the year. I cannot believe that this was as good as it was, that the songs are so good. The feeling that you get when watching it, they nail it. It's exactly what I wanted from a story like this. And I will say too, I was a little worried. The opening has this song with Timothée Chalamet that I would say is easily the worst part of the movie and doesn't work as well, because it seems like it's going for a more like somber, and then it like immediately, as soon as it does this switch, then it's like, oh yes, I like this. So I think it's actually kind of intentional to be like, okay, this is not what you're expecting, and so good. This is one of those movies that I've really been telling a lot of people that they really need to check out, because I'm very much anticipating it releasing digitally, because I can't wait to rewatch it. Number 11, Oppenheimer. What more even needs to be said about this one? Christopher Nolan brought together such an ensemble and such a great cast, and it is such an experience, especially in IMAX. Number 10, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is something that got me to listen to Dog Days Are Gone by Florence and the Machine like all summer long. It's probably my favorite song of the year, and it came out however long ago. And it's really well done. It's a great ending to both James Gunn's tenure in Marvel, as well as just the time with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And this was actually the movie that finally made me go, okay, I trust James Gunn with DC stuff, because the guy can clearly do different styles, and it manages to have a maturity while still feeling very Guardians, which is surprising. Though I do not like the heaven stuff at all. Not at all. There's a film later on that does heaven much better. This next one is going to be controversial. Number 9, The Flash. Now, like Saw X, I was able to see this early. I actually got to see this like 7 weeks before the legitimate release. So I mean, I went into this completely blind. Not completely blind. I knew the Flashpoint Paradox story, but I didn't have there was no cameo spoiled for me. It was just watching it pure and amazing. Absolutely amazing. And this is one of those films that I mean, the only reason that I even give the little disclaimer is because some people really have gone against this film, and I couldn't disagree more. Watched the behind the scenes stuff, and it just reaffirmed my love for the movie. And it also reaffirmed that I don't think the effects are nearly as bad as people make out to be. I think that it's just a different style because it's not going for hyper realism. It's doing this weird in the multiverse kind of thing. Your warp, the speed force. It works. It doesn't think that I think that people just expected something different. It's the same thing with Ant-Man Quantumania, where the MODOK is not this abomination of CGI that people are making out to be. It's just different proportions than your fucking eyes and brain are used to seeing. So it's like, oh, that's unnatural. But when you actually look at it, and it's fucking well done. So, number 8, Cobweb. I've talked about this movie a lot in different places. I love this movie with a passion. This is another one I got to see way early. And by anticipation, I believe I saw this in middle of or beginning of June, and then it came out middle of July because it came out same day as Barbenheimer. And so my anticipation and like wanting to talk to others about this just it kept happening. Like I was waiting, and then it premiered with such a thud, and then hasn't really gotten a fair shake. I think it was on some streaming service, Paramount Plus maybe, but I'm hoping it's something that kind of gains an audience over the next few years because again, it's so good. It's so good. I'm not even going to explain what anything in it is about. Going blind. The more blind you go in, the better it is. Number 7, Birth Rebirth. This is like a little Frankenstein-y tale, and it's really about how good the performances are. Just phenomenal. This is Judy Reyes and Marin Ireland, just powerhouse performances. And I wish that more people could see this film. Wish more people would give it a chance because it's so good. I believe it is on Shudder, so check it out. This is one of those that the less you know about it, the better, because it's really messed up and really good. Number 6, Poor Things. I did not expect this movie to be what it was. I was expecting quirky. I wasn't expecting sex, identity, and all of this. I don't know. It was much deeper than I ever anticipated. Because I mean, obviously, The Lobster, the favorite. Yorgos does very complex films, but there's times where it's like, okay. But this one, I would say it's his most accessible. I think it's his best. I think that every element of this works really well. Emma Stone is really out of her comfort zone, and I think that's why she's so good in it. There are a few people, I mean, I think Natalie Portman in May December is the only person that really gives her any kind of run for her money in terms of the award season, but if either of those two win, then I'll be happy. They're so good. And Mark Ruffalo is probably my favorite part of the entire film. So much fun. Number 5, The Iron Claw. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a oxymoron here because I will just say, don't listen to wrestling fans when it comes to this movie. And I know I'm a wrestling fan, so it's essentially saying don't listen to me on this. However, there's just I think that film criticism this is one of those times where it's like, okay, you need to watch this movie. You quit watching it as an exact representation of what you remember from your youth. A lot of people were very upset about like the Ric Flair depiction, and it's like I know a bunch of people who don't know Ric Flair and would watch that scene, and it still comes across what needs to come across. So I don't care about impressions and impersonations, and it's like who gives a shit. The wrestling is great. The wrestling's really well done. Yes, you can see stiffness in terms of Efron because he's just not he's stiff. But Jeremy Allen White clearly picked it up very well. All of his stuff is very well done. But all the wrestling in general, like they cut around it very well, and things are quick. Things are I still think I prefer how The Wrestler is shot, but I mean, it's still top tier, absolute top tier. And I mean, this is the film that I've never cried so much in a movie theater. This is a very brutal story, very, very brutal, but in a great way. It's just phenomenal. Number 4, Red Rooms. This is another one that I watched at Fantasia. This is actually a Montreal-based film, and just it hits a lot of notes that work well. The first 20 to 25 minutes are just a courtroom scene. It's not just one shot, but it is very long takes. And so we don't even really meet our lead, get a sense of her until 25 minutes in. Yes, we see her, but we don't, again, she's just an observer in all of this. So it's cool to then, like, the structure is very interesting and how they reveal things. There's twists and turns you don't expect. It's very uncomfortable. There's things you don't want to see. But it's very satisfying in the end, and just really well done. Really, really well done. And I should say too, this is one of those things where it's like, technically it's released, but it might count as a 2024 film eventually, depending on where it goes, because yeah, so just a heads up on that. Number 3, Scream 6. You can see my cool little Ghostface shirt. I love this movie. This is my most rewatched film of the year. This and The Flash are easily my most rewatched. This one, I mean, especially once it came out digitally, I was watching it once every couple days. It was that severe. The Scream series just really appeals to me. It's probably my favorite horror franchise. And this one, I mean, they're in New York. They do all these elements that I love, especially after the Dewey death in the 5th one. There's these expectations like, oh, Gail's going to get it. There's the fact that then you have all the fallout from what happened with part 5, and yes, elephant in the room, a lot of fallout in regards to this. I've not talked about it on the channel. This is the most I will address it. I wish the best for Scream 7. I hope we get a good movie. That is where I'm at with that. So yeah, Scream 6, great if it is the conclusion to the Carpenter sisters, and I think that it's a fine conclusion. I think that there's many different ways that they can go for the next film and still be Scream, still work well. Number 2, Infinity Pool. Thought this would be my number 1 for the longest time. For the longest time it was. Saw this way back in February, and it stayed number 1 for a long time. But then something else came along. But I think Brandon Cronenberg is one of the best up-and-coming filmmakers. I think that what he does with the camera is really phenomenal, and just from a storyteller, he's great. He has such a command over the lens and just pacing and emotion within the frame, and I can't say enough good things about him. Skarsgård is great. This is the film that finally got me to understand people's fascination with Mia Goth, because I don't get it a lot of the time, but here I get it. She worked really well. Great actress. And yeah. Number 1, Killers of the Flower Moon. Yes. This was an experience. I'd been anticipating this for a while. Knew of the story. Did not read the book, just knew of the story. And I didn't expect it to be this good. Everything about it it's quintessential Scorsese. How he deals with characters and developing like passage of time, developing relationships and how to show them. It's quite an experience, and I never give 10 out of 10s. This is my only 10 out of 10 on the year that I was comfortable with giving right after the viewing. So I'm like, flawless, absolutely flawless. So good. The Lily Gladstone, such a heartbreaking role. Leo, just the fact that he was willing to put himself in such a ugly color is great. When does he not do phenomenal? So yeah, those are my favorite films of 2023. It's quite the mix. This was such a year. Even my 25th film is still an 8 out of 10. That's insane. absolutely insane. I can't say enough good things about 2023 as a whole for cinema outside of the bad strikes, which obviously took things down. Because, I mean, we probably have talked about Dune 2 had the strikes not happen, but fortunately that kind of happened. So, what we have to deal with as moviegoers. But thankfully, hopefully those people will get paid their proper wages and we won't keep seeing just streamers take the option of, okay, we're just going to take your thing off our service rather than pay you, as that's not great. But yeah, let me know what you think of my list. Also, let me know what your list is. If you've made it through this, I'm always curious. I mean, you don't have to do a top 25 if you want to. Let me know, because I like to see where stuff lands. I have a feeling there's some stuff, like, I'm sure Talk to Me is on several people's lists, and there's random thing, probably Barbie, which I fucking hated. But yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of things that people are like, oh, I can't believe that's not on. Well, maybe it just didn't appeal to me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Really, really appreciate it. And we will see you guys in the next one. Have a great Happy New Year, and I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.